All right. Well, I was asked, what are my thoughts on Andrade, on the Andrade situation with AEW, with WWE, I should say. And well, glad you asked because I had it ready on the old doc tonight. Andrade's. This is the article that we're going to read from our boy Josh Nason over there at the Figure 4 Online Wrestling Observer. Andrade released by WWE. In a surprise move Saturday, which was Saturday, September 13, Andrade was released by WWE, first reported by Fightful and later confirmed by our David Meltzer. The outlet also noted that it was not part of a mass group of cuts. John Alba later reported that he was released from the company and it was not a mutual decision. He has already been moved to their alumni section on WWE.com. The 35-year-old last wrestled alongside Rey Fenix at August's SummerSlam in the six-way TLC match for the tag titles. This was his second run in WWE after nearly 3 years in AEW. He returned at the January 2024 Royal Rumble and eventually won the Speed title, oh boy, holding it for more than 160 days. His initial WWE run lasted from 2016 to 2020 and included an NXT title run and a WWE United States title run. He wrestled 62 times in his second go around, and was teaming with Rey Fenix in recent months. He thanked AEW head Tony Khan after his AEW run ended, as their split didn't appear to be acrimonious. It was reported AEW wanted to re-sign him, but he declined. Instead, chose to sign with WWE instead. All right. Got another little bit of an article here, a little follow-up, where Andrade posted his first message here since his WWE release. Posted that today, if I'm not mistaken, on September 15. Andrade has not addressed the circumstances of his exit at this point, but he sent out a brief social media post Monday thanking WWE, as well as on an Instagram, where he said, "Thank you, WWE." He tweeted, "Thank you, WWE," and wrote this lovely message here where he's just chilling, smoking a cigar and having a whiskey, or it kind of, is that a whiskey or like just a shot of espresso? Hard to say. He's unbothered by all of this. He's unbothered. Well, isn't that interesting? But the one point we haven't brought up yet, the one thing we just haven't brought up yet is are the reasons that he left. If it wasn't mutual, then what the hell went on? Well, Dave Meltzer, chimed in to begin with. I believe he started first, like he often does. And he said on the September 14 edition of Wrestling Observer Radio, he addressed what led to the 35-year-old second stint with WWE coming to an end less than 2 years after he returned. So this is what he said here, our boy Dave. Quote, "I've seen all the speculation everywhere, and I don't know the whole story, but I do know it was a discipline thing. It was not his doing at all." Well, I mean, a discipline thing is his doing, but he continued. "A couple of weeks ago, there was a disciplinary thing, and all I know, it was at a TV shoot, and he was told to go home. And he's not been used since. I was told it was not drug related, it was not alcohol related, it was not marriage related. Nobody would tell me what it was, but it was enough to be sent home." Dave adds, "I know that they wanted him in the AAA project. He didn't do it, so there's that. But I don't know that there's anything to do with if that has anything to do with it or not." Okay? Are we following this so far? So Dave basically saying, not drugs, not alcohol, not related to that, but it's a disciplinary thing. Okay, cool. John Alba over on The Takedown on SI had a little extra information here. Sources indicate to the takedown on SI that Andrade was effectively released by the company and that the departure was not a mutual decision. He had not been backstage at TV tapings for nearly a month, and multiple talent were being told Saturday afternoon that the 35-year-old had been let go. It is unknown if Andrade also requested his release, but he did back in 2021. Was also noted that the release was not related to budget cuts, as has been the case for multiple WWE departures over the past couple of years. The exact nature of the release, however, is not entirely clear at this time, and was emphasized that WWE doesn't typically offer contracts that are a year and a half long. So we're hammering home the idea that absolutely something did happen to end his contract early. And since then, John Alba has come forward with more information saying, yeah, he might have one or more wellness policy violations. This is what John Alba added in a later article on the 14th. The takedown on SI would soon learn that Andrade's departure was not mutual and that the company released him from his contract. It is not clear as to whether or not he ever requested his release, but the decision to cut him was on the company's volition and not related to budget moves. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer would reveal on Saturday night that the release was disciplinary, which the takedown in SI can confirm. We can also add more context as to what sort of discipline Andrade was facing. Multiple sources indicate to the takedown on SI that Andrade had at least one wellness policy violation during his most recent WWE run. It is not known how exactly he was in violation of the policy, or whether or not he is in fact tested for a banned substance. WWE can suspend talent for failing to produce a test as well. It is also not clear if it directly led to his release, but it was noted that he was suspended without pay as a result of it. Initial reports noted that he had not been backstage at SmackDown as of late and was not listed on internal rosters. The takedown on SI can add that he was told to leave a taping last month and was escorted out of the building. A high-level source asserted this dismissal from the building was in relation to his most recent suspension and that it affected major creative plans for his tag team with Rey Fenix. Body Slam's Corey Hayes reported on Saturday night that WWE had tried to get in touch with Andrade for several weeks but had been unsuccessful. The takedown on his site cannot confirm this at this time, though the incident at SmackDown was said to have occurred in the middle of August. So, if we're piecing all of this together and, we listen to the rumors and the hearsay and so on and so forth, this is what we have here. We have Andrade, from what we're told, of course, these are all, reported rumors, violated a wellness policy, was caught with something, either was caught with something or refused to provide a sample for a test, right? And or refused to do the test outright. And that led to him being suspended. Then he shows up at SmackDown during his suspension. He's escorted off the premises. And then next thing you know, he's gone. So there might be, it might be that event that caused it. Maybe, there's another wellness policy that was perhaps skirted or didn't happen or, was bad, just ended up being bad. There's a lot of stuff that could, as far as the exact timeline goes or the exact nature of the events, but it does seem that once again, Andrade found himself being tossed out of another major company that he worked for. Once again, we've talked about we've talked about what happened with WWE the first time, And then he shows up in AEW, and we kind of know what happens there. And now he goes back to WWE, and he's thinking, he wanted to go back. I've heard the rumors about AEW wanting to re-sign him, and he just chose, he's like, no, I'm going to go to the better place. And then this is what happens. Should we get into analysis time? Like my own thoughts, how I feel all of this comes together, and maybe talk about what the future lies for Andrade. Okay, let's do that. So Andrade has this history of just being a malcontent, of being a dissident, of being someone who's never fucking happy, of just being mopey and not being a someone who's necessarily easy to work with. Now, did he mess up a wellness? Did he have a wellness policy violation or not? Look, we can assume that all signs point to yes, but you could also absolutely point and go, I call bullshit on this, and this is probably just a reason that has been made up to make sure that the WWE universe turn on the guy, right? That they're not that we don't get another Karrion Kross or R-Truth situation where they're let go and the fans rise up. No, Andrade was released, and he was released because he probably puts bad things in his body, WWE universe, and that's not good. And the reason why I call bullshit on that is because, look at some of the guys they have under employment and that are over 40. I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure you have a couple pop into your mind right now, and you're like, when's the last time they were checked for the wellness policy? I'm just saying that there's a high level of potential that this is bullshit. Before WWE, remember when people would get released by WWE, do you remember the default reason, right? That would be leaked to media, right? They're difficult to work with. That's the one that would always come up. They're difficult to work with. And then people will go, oh, well, and that's a stain. That is a really bad stain on a pro wrestler's reputation if that gets put out there, that they're difficult to work with. Because no one wants to hire someone who's difficult to work with. But, a lot of fans, look, it just becomes, fan nonsense and oh, he's difficult to work with. But the wellness policy, the wellness policy in this era of, supreme health in the United States, spearheaded by Paul Levesque and his buddy, RFK Jr., they cannot stand for, these pristine, these pristine Greek-like physiques of WWE wrestlers to be anything less than pure and well put together. Like, and I know, Paul Levesque, a guy who will take a stand against injecting yourself with performance enhancers, right? Paul Levesque will not stand for his talent being on the juice. He's a man with standards. He's a man he has a legacy of being pure and au natural, baby. So the hypocrisy behind WWE saying, oh, he failed a wellness policy. Now, look, is he testing for Fent? Well, then, yeah, send the fucker home. You know what I mean? Like, okay, sure. And also, let's try and get him into rehab. It's like, but, you see what I mean when I think it's a bullshit answer? Because how many guys on the roster right now, if they were to take a wellness, if they were to have a wellness check right now, how many do you think would fail? A lot, I'd say. It just seems like an excuse, is what I'm trying to say. It just seems like an excuse. And they made sure to clarify that it wasn't budget related just to drive the knife in just a little deeper. It's like, oh, no. We had the money. We could afford him. We just don't want him. We could afford this guy. No problem. We just don't want him. So, according to Adam Cole, MJF would fail. Well, you know. Look, okay. So, you know, I don't want to give the impression that I'm necessarily sticking up for Andrade, because I'm not. This kind of shit smells fishy. I don't like it. It's kind of desperate, you know. It really does feel. It really does feel like they're just trying to come up with an excuse, and one that the fans won't turn on, because no one is going to start up, you know, a hashtag to, you know, save Andrade if, you know, the guy is, you know, he's abusing PEDs. No one wants that. No one's going to stick up for that. Although these days, common sense these days is it's kind of wild. So I don't know. To be fair, Brian Cage is there, so it's cool. Yeah. Well, look. To be fair, overall, what are AEW's wellness guidelines? What are they? I just never quite heard of those. Anyway. So that leaves us with the question, right? What's next for Andrade? And chat, look, I love you all. You are the A+ audience. What do you guys and gals and non-binary pals think is left with? What are the options for Andrade? Of course, the obvious one is AEW. Everyone's AEW. And I would say that Tony Khan should not rehire our guy here. I don't see, like, if he brings him back, he has completely lost the plot. This is a guy who was trying to get fired from AEW. Andrade, of course, I'm talking about. He was trying to get fired from the company. He was picking fights with people backstage. He was slapping Sammy Guevara around, and instead of getting fired, made him a babyface. This is a guy who was miserable. And I'll tell you why he was miserable, okay? I'll tell you why he was miserable. And I think everyone has to come to this realization when it comes to Andrade, okay? And maybe for a lot of you, it won't be a realization, but for those of you who are new here, who've been watching pro wrestling for 4 years or so, Andrade has always perceived himself as a guy, but with a capital G, okay? Not just a guy, but a guy, if not the guy. Wrestlers in general all have a very high opinion of themselves. And you need that if you want to make it in pro wrestling. You have to have that overinflated self-confidence to make it in this wild and wacky business. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But Andrade really believes that deep in his heart. And it has historically come in the way of him having successful runs on North American, well, at least on American wrestling promotions. Okay? It's the same reason he got kicked, he got removed from WWE that first time, where there were rumors going around that, he was, a little difficult to work with and whatnot. Then he goes to AEW and has the mentality that, fair enough, a lot of WWE guys who transferred over had, where they're like, well, I'm going to be a world champion here amongst you little people. I'm the big star. I'm coming in from the other place, so I'm going to be a world champion here. Booker's like, no, not really. I don't quite see it that way. So then he goes away, and then he gets thrown into the mid card in WWE, where he gets put back into a tag team, where he's like, I don't want to do AAA again. This is me going backwards. I am not doing AAA. I'm not doing this shit. Put me on the main shows. Remember, he muscled his way. Who did he replace? He muscled his way into the first WrestleMania he returned because he was being a bitch about it backstage. He was just complaining backstage, and they finally put him on the card. I can't remember who he replaced, but he replaced someone. Was it Dragon Lee? That's right, because Dragon Lee did come in before. That's right. Yes, that's right. Okay. In the Rey Mysterio stuff with the LWO. There was no reason for him to be involved in this, but he strong-armed his way in there, going to see Paul. Paul, you got to put me on the show, man. I'm Andrade. So this is a guy who sees himself on no lesser level than wrestling with top guys. That's his thing. And again, I don't have an issue with that. But at some point, when everyone is telling you, no, probably not, all the bookers you've worked for all say, nah, not really. Well, at some point, you're kind of like, well, I can either continue to work hard, do some little backstage politicking, or I can go around moping and getting into fights with people and just being a dick. And that's essentially what Andrade does. And look, we've seen it multiple times at this point. This is what he does. So if Tony Khan brings him back, I think Tony is completely out to lunch. Completely out to lunch. It's a bozo move to bring him back. This locker room does not need nor want Andrade, I'm sure. And I wouldn't be surprised. Here's the thing, is that I wouldn't even be surprised in the least if Andrade were to return to AEW, because I don't think the finish was acrimonious at all. And I think the proof is right there in how he left the company. His last few matches, remember, he was in the first Continental Classic. Do you remember this? He was in the first Continental Classic. In the Continental Classic, he was booked to beat Bryan Danielson, and he beat him right in the ring. While all these rumors about his departure are starting to bubble and then start circulating more. Start hearing that, oh, Andrade may be on his way out. And people are pointing at the Continental Classic. And they're going, well, he's not leaving. Look, he's winning. He's having a really good run. Apparently, Tony was trying to throw as much stuff at him to keep him. Wasn't enough, because he hit the bricks. His contract came up, decided not to renew, which kept them all open for the Royal Rumble, which was 2 weeks after. So the last match he had was against Miro. He lost to Miro, but had a thank you, thank you crowd and so on. Tony gave that to them. He gave them that. It was broadcast on pay-per-view. He finished the Continental Classic with as many points as Eddie Kingston, who ended up winning the whole thing. He and Eddie Kingston are tied for 9 points at the end. That is, like, Tony has no ill will. He was pushing the guy on his way out. So I would not be surprised if somehow Andrade makes his way back. In the least, I wouldn't be surprised in the least. It's not because Tony holds this grudge, or it's like because whatever. I would say it was amicable, because it sure looked like that on TV. Tony's been keeping people off TV that he knows are not going to renew. Look, the Ray Phoenix thing and the Ricky Starks thing and the Danhausen thing, and he's just been keeping them off TV. Didn't do that with Andrade. He booked him till the very last match he could book Andrade on. He booked him on, and it's not because Andrade. Here's the thing: is that Andrade is a tremendous wrestler. I don't think anyone is arguing that Andrade is not a great wrestler. I just don't know if he's worth the squeeze. That's the thing. I don't know if he's worth the squeeze. So if he's not doing AEW, what is he doing? He may be a guy who just completely really did burn a bridge with WWE. So AAA is not in his future either. I don't think he'd go to TNA. Even if you discount WWE's possible influence, okay? Even if you discount that, there's no way Andrade is going to work for TNA for so little money. This guy's used to the high life now. You know what I mean? This is a guy he doesn't work for peanuts anymore. He's not going to TNA. I think there's a nice place for him in CMLL. CMLL would 100% use him. 100%. And he'd be a top guy there, and he would be he would instantly be booked in a big story with Mystico. 100%. I sincerely believe that. I think he has a nice secure place there and stays in the good graces of AEW. He can hang around AEW, maybe show up on a show. There's the partnership going. It's I think it'd be a good move. Another good move would be to go back to New Japan. And he, if he want to, they want to bring back La Sombra, well, they're more than welcome to do it, right? Does he want to go? That's a whole other thing. Does he want to go hang out in Japan for these long extended tours? That is legitimately, a question, right? Can New Japan afford him? And I'm laughing, but can New Japan afford him? Or do you go to the Bushiroad people and ask them to break the bank, to pull a Mercedes Moné and pay for the salary, right? And do you do that for Andrade? A guy who can Andrade move the needle in Japan? I think he can move needles in CMLL. I think in Mexico, legitimately, he can draw. Legitimately. In Japan? Because again, he's not going to go cheap. But I would also argue that New Japan would welcome him with open arms. I think they would just, please do come in. Have a seat. Let's talk. What can I get you to sign today? Kind of deal. I don't think he has I don't think any options are close to him. I think he's got relationships well established. I think there's a lot of potential for things that he can do in 90 days because since he was released, then it isn't, there's the 90-day non-compete. But I think if he shows up in CMLL, I legitimately believe that's the best spot for him because he will be treated as a top guy. And he's going to make a lot of guys on the undercard angry, but he's going to be welcomed with open arms, and he's going to be slotted immediately in a program against Mystico. They won't even they're going to build that up for next year's anniversary show. They're going to make a big event out of it, right? New Japan could be, but I don't think they can afford him. Does he want to go on Japan tours and whatnot? That's, all questions that we don't have the answer to. AEW is the most unlikely, if you ask me. But also, not an unlikely where it's there's a 5% chance that he'll show up. I give it a 40% chance that he'd return. 40-60. So, it's I don't think the split was as acrimonious as people like to think it was. I think it's been rather amicable. I think Tony Khan really likes him. So I would not be surprised if he shows up again. I think it's a bad idea. I think Tony Khan needs to learn about his previous experience with Andrade El Idolo Almas, Cien Almas, man with many names. But yeah, listen, to be continued, of course. But, look, to say that Andrade being available as a free agent is not a big deal is underselling this. I don't think it's a huge deal, but this is a pretty significant free agency right now. It'll be very, very, very interesting to see where he falls in 90 days. So by the end of the year, we will know where El Idolo will end up, and hopefully it's the best place for him, and that he can keep a job this time.